Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear brothers and sisters, today I want to talk about something that many of us seek, something we yearn for, yet often misunderstand. That is the real secret of spiritual power. So many people think that spiritual power is about performing great deeds, having a strong voice in the community, or being recognized by people around us. But the truth, my beloved brothers and sisters, is very different. Spiritual power is not about showing off. It is not about impressing others. True spiritual power is the power that connects you directly to Allah and transforms your life from within. The first key to this spiritual power is sincerity. Everything in the sight of Allah is measured by sincerity. You can recite thousands of verses, pray all night, give abundant charity, but if your heart is not sincere, if your actions are not for Allah alone, then the real power is absent. Spiritual power is rooted in the heart. It grows when you purify your intentions and make Allah the sole purpose of your actions. The moment your deeds are done to please Allah, rather than to gain attention or praise, you tap into a source of strength far beyond the physical world. The second secret is consistency in worship. Spiritual power is not gained through one big act or sudden effort. It is earned through small, consistent, and sincere steps. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "The most beloved deeds to Allah are those done consistently, even if they are small." Think about this carefully. Even a simple act, if done consistently, becomes a force of transformation in your life. Praying on time, reading the Quran daily, remembering Allah in your heart. These are the building blocks of true spiritual strength. The third secret is trust in Allah. Spiritual power comes when your heart is filled with reliance on Allah alone. When challenges come, when difficulties surround you, the person with spiritual power does not panic. They do not despair. They know that Allah is the ultimate controller of all affairs. Trusting Allah does not mean sitting idly. It means taking the necessary steps and leaving the outcome in His hands. That trust, my brothers and sisters, is what gives you peace, courage, and a spiritual strength that no worldly power can match. The fourth secret is remembrance of Allah. Spiritual power grows in a heart that constantly remembers its Creator. The Quran reminds us that hearts find tranquility in the remembrance of Allah. When you cultivate this habit, when you make dhikr a part of your life, you shield yourself from negativity, from fear, and from the whispers of the soul that lead to weakness. Spiritual power is not just about performing rituals. It is about living a life where Allah is at the center of your thoughts, your decisions, and your interactions. The fifth secret, which is closely tied to all the others, is humility and submission. A spiritually powerful person is not arrogant, not proud, and not boastful. They recognize their weakness and their dependence on Allah. They do not elevate themselves over others. They treat people with kindness, patience, and understanding. Spiritual power manifests in gentle strength, in the ability to face adversity without anger, in helping others without expectation, and in serving Allah quietly yet profoundly. Finally, spiritual power is also about action aligned with knowledge. Knowing the right is not enough. You must implement it. Reading about patience, about trust, about the power of prayer is valuable, but the real secret lies in living it. Spiritual power is active. It transforms your speech, your behavior, your choices, and ultimately your destiny. Brothers and sisters, I want you to understand this deeply. The real secret of spiritual power is not in the eyes of the people, not in worldly recognition, not in fame, wealth, or social status. The secret lies in a heart that is pure, a soul that is connected to Allah, and a life that is consistent, sincere, humble, and reliant upon Him. When you cultivate these qualities, you will find a power within you that no obstacle can destroy, no fear can shake, and no hardship can diminish. Let us strive to seek this spiritual power, not for pride or prestige, but for closeness to Allah and for the strength to lead a life of goodness, peace, and purpose. And may Allah guide our hearts, strengthen our faith, and fill our lives with His divine light. Spiritual power begins with sincerity, and this is the foundation upon which everything else rests. Many people believe that performing acts of worship, giving charity, praying long hours, or even leading others in the path of goodness automatically grants spiritual power, but the truth is far more subtle and profound. Spiritual power is not in the outward appearance of your deeds, it is in the intention behind them. It is in the purity of the heart, the honesty of the soul, and the complete focus on pleasing Allah alone. When your actions are sincere, when they are done solely to earn the pleasure of Allah, then they carry a weight and a strength that is invisible to the eyes of people, but immensely powerful in the sight of your Creator. One may recite the Quran for hours, perform lengthy prayers, or give enormous amounts in charity, but if there is an element of showing off, pride, or seeking recognition, then those actions become hollow. They may benefit others, yes, but they will not bring the spiritual elevation, the inner peace, or the unseen support that comes from true sincerity. This is why sincerity is considered the essence of all acts of worship, because it aligns the heart with the actions, creating a harmony that draws the mercy, guidance, and power of Allah into the life of the believer. Sincerity, or Ikhlas, is not simply about performing actions secretly or avoiding public recognition, though that is part of it. Sincerity is a condition of the heart. It is about examining your intentions continually, questioning yourself and purifying your motives so that every act is a step toward Allah. It is about asking yourself, why am I doing this? Is it for the admiration of people, for social status, for ego, or is it purely for Allah? The moment the heart wavers, when there is even a shadow of self-interest, the spiritual energy of that act diminishes. This is why the scholars of Islam have emphasized the importance of intention, saying that every action is judged by its intention, and the reward of deeds depends on sincerity. A small act done sincerely is greater in the sight of Allah than a massive act performed for show. Spiritual power is thus not measured by quantity, but by the quality and purity of your intention. When sincerity becomes a habit, it transforms the entire life of a believer. Actions no longer become burdensome or mechanical. Prayer is no longer a routine, it becomes a conversation with the Creator, a moment of connection and nourishment for the soul. Charity is no longer a transaction or an opportunity for praise. It becomes a means of softening the heart, of purifying wealth, and of earning the unseen blessings of Allah. Even everyday actions, helping a neighbor, offering kind words, showing patience in difficult situations, when done sincerely, become sources of spiritual strength. The heart that is sincere experiences peace and contentment that worldly success cannot provide. It experiences joy and fulfillment even when others fail to recognize it, because the believer knows that Allah, the all-seeing and all-knowing, is aware and pleased. Sincerity also protects spiritual power from corruption. The moment actions are driven by ego, pride, or desire for recognition, they can become a source of weakness. A person may appear outwardly strong, charismatic, or influential, but if their heart is not aligned with Allah, that power is fragile and temporary. Sincerity acts as a shield, keeping the heart humble and connected, ensuring that spiritual power is rooted in reality and not in illusion. It is like planting a tree with deep roots. The tree may face storms, wind, or drought, But as long as the roots are strong and nourished, the tree stands firm. Similarly, spiritual power that is grounded in sincere intention remains strong, unshaken by trials, tests, or the opinions of people. Another aspect of sincerity is self-accountability. A sincere believer continuously evaluates their actions, checking whether their deeds are for Allah or for some other reason. This self-reflection is not meant to create doubt or despair, but to maintain the purity of the heart. It is a tool for growth, ensuring that every act of charity, every moment of worship carries the full spiritual weight it is meant to have. Over time, this habit strengthens the heart, making the believer resilient, humble, and deeply connected to Allah. Spiritual power, therefore, is not something external. It is cultivated in the heart, in the inner world of intentions and motivations, and it radiates outward, affecting thoughts, actions, and interactions with others. Sincerity also enables spiritual power to manifest in unseen ways. Allah rewards acts that are hidden from people in ways that humans cannot measure. The dua of a sincere heart, the quiet remembrance of Allah done without audience, the patience in hardship maintained purely for Allah's sake. All of these create a connection and a strength that becomes evident in one's life. Opportunities open, difficulties are eased, guidance comes, and even challenges are transformed into lessons and blessings. This is the subtle yet powerful effect of sincerity. It draws divine support in a way that worldly eyes cannot perceive, yet it shapes destiny, strengthens faith, and empowers the soul. Spiritual power rooted in sincerity also inspires others. When people witness genuine humility, kindness, and devotion, it leaves an impression that cannot be achieved through force or authority. A sincere heart radiates light, and that light influences the environment around it. People are drawn to sincerity because it is authentic and pure. Unlike actions driven by ego or desire for recognition, sincere actions have a lasting effect. They endure beyond the temporary admiration of humans, leaving a mark on hearts and communities in ways that are both visible and invisible. Truly, the journey to spiritual power begins in the heart. It begins by purifying intentions, ensuring that every act is performed solely for Allah, and committing to sincerity as a way of life. It is a lifelong effort, a continual process of self-examination, humility, and alignment with divine guidance. The stronger the sincerity, the deeper the connection to Allah, the more powerful the spiritual presence, and the greater the capacity to withstand challenges, influence positive change, and experience true inner peace. True spiritual strength comes through consistency in worship, and this is one of the greatest secrets of lasting spiritual power. Many people think that a few grand acts, occasional bursts of devotion, or rare displays of piety are enough to make someone spiritually strong. But Islam teaches us otherwise. Spiritual power is not built in a day, nor is it measured by sporadic efforts. It is cultivated gradually, steadily, and patiently through regular and consistent acts of worship. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "The most beloved deeds to Allah are those done consistently, even if they are small." This statement carries profound wisdom because it reveals that the power of worship is not in its magnitude, but in its persistence and sincerity. Thank you. Consistency creates momentum, strengthens the heart, and forms a connection with Allah that becomes unshakable over time. Small actions done regularly have the ability to transform the soul, the heart, and ultimately the entire life of a believer. When we speak of consistency in worship, we are not talking only about the ritual prayers, although they are essential. Consistency encompasses all forms of devotion, whether it is the 5 daily prayers performed on time, reading the Quran regularly, making frequent dua, remembering Allah throughout the day, or giving charity according to one's ability. Each small action, when performed with dedication, compounds over time, creating a reservoir of spiritual power. Imagine a single drop of water falling continuously on a stone. Initially, it may seem insignificant, almost unnoticed, but over time, the persistent drops shape the stone, carving it slowly but surely. In the same way, consistent worship gradually shapes the heart, softens the soul, and fortifies the spirit. A believer who is consistent in even the smallest acts earns a power that cannot be measured by human standards, a power that safeguards them in times of hardship and elevates them in times of ease. Consistency also builds discipline, and discipline is a key component of spiritual strength. When a person commits to regular worship, they train themselves to prioritize their relationship with Allah above the distractions of life. They learn to organize their T. E, manage their desires and resist temptations that weaken their spiritual focus. The discipline developed through consistency is not rigid or harsh. Rather, it creates a rhythm in life that allows the believer to live in harmony with divine guidance. The heart becomes accustomed to turning to Allah in every situation, and the mind becomes oriented toward righteousness. Over time, these habits create a lifestyle in which worship is not forced, but natural. The believer's day is structured around remembrance, prayer, and good deeds, and this rhythm produces a steady flow of spiritual power that strengthens character, decisions, and actions. Another aspect of consistency is the development of trust and reliance on Allah. When a person is consistent in their worship, they experience firsthand the mercy and support of Allah in their daily life. They realize that even small, regular acts are never wasted in the sight of Allah, and that the divine reward is multiplied in ways that humans cannot comprehend. This realization deepens faith and reliance, creating a spiritual confidence that comes from knowing that Allah is present, aware, and responsive to the efforts of the devoted. When challenges arise, the consistent worshiper is better equipped to handle them because their spiritual foundation is firm. They are not easily shaken by trials, for they have built a connection with Allah that provides strength, patience, and resilience. Consistency is not merely about doing action. Yes, it is about creating a relationship with Allah that endures, grows, and sustains the believer through every circumstance. Consistency in worship also nurtures humility and patience. A believer who prays, gives charity, reads the Quran, and remembers Allah daily learns that spiritual progress is gradual. They learn that spiritual power is not achieved overnight, nor can it be bought or rushed. This understanding fosters humility because it reminds the believer that everything comes from Allah, and it teaches patience because it shows that persistent effort, even in the face of difficulty, yields results in Allah's perfect timing. The heart becomes steady, the soul becomes tranquil, and the believer is able to face life with a calm and focused mind. This calmness is a sign of spiritual strength, and it is directly tied to the discipline and consistency of regular worship. Consistency also shapes the character of the believer. Regular worship and devotion influence not only one's relationship with Allah, but also one's behavior toward others. The more consistent a person is in performing righteous acts, the more it transforms their interactions, speech, and decisions. Their patience improves, their generosity increases, their ability to forgive strengthens, and their sincerity deepens. Spiritual power, therefore, is not isolated within the individual. It radiates outward, influencing family, community, and society. The believer becomes a source of positive impact because consistent worship shapes their character in accordance with divine guidance. Moreover, consistency protects against weakness of faith. In moments of difficulty or temptation, a believer who is consistent in their worship finds support in the habits they have cultivated. Regular prayer, remembrance, and reading of the Quran become anchors for the heart, preventing it from being easily swayed by doubt, fear, or desire. Spiritual power is sustained through these habits, and the believer develops a resilience that carries them through trials. Consistency, therefore, is both a source of growth and a shield against the trials of life, allowing the believer to maintain focus, faith, and inner strength. Truly, the secret of spiritual power lies not in sudden bursts of devotion or dramatic displays of piety, but in the humble, patient, and consistent practice of worship. Each small, regular action becomes a building block for a heart that is strong, a soul that is firm, and a life that is aligned with divine guidance. Consistency transforms ordinary deeds into extraordinary power, creating a foundation for spiritual elevation that endures, strengthens, and radiates in every aspect of life. Trust in Allah is the third secret of spiritual power, and it is one of the most profound elements that strengthens the heart, guides the soul, and empowers the believer in ways that nothing else can. Many people underestimate the impact of true reliance on Allah. They rely on themselves, on their wealth, on their intellect, or on the people around them, forgetting that ultimate control belongs to Allah alone. Spiritual power does not come from worldly resources, from popularity, or from influence. It comes from a heart that has complete trust in Allah, a heart that surrenders its fears, doubts, and desires into His hands. When a believer cultivates this trust, they are filled with courage, peace, and resilience, because they know that Allah is aware of every situation, every hardship, and every effort they make. Trust is not passive, it is active reliance. It is the balance between taking the necessary steps in life while leaving the outcome entirely in the hands of Allah. To understand trust, one must first understand the heart of a believer. A heart filled with trust recognizes that every event, every challenge, and every blessing comes from Allah. When difficulties arise, a person with trust does not despair or panic. Instead, they remain patient, knowing that Allah has wisdom behind every trial, even when it is hidden from their eyes. They understand that every situation is temporary and every problem has a solution within the knowledge and power of Allah. Trust, therefore, brings peace to the heart. The believer is not constantly anxious about the future or overwhelmed by the weight of circumstances, because they know that their Lord is in control. Spiritual power, then, is closely linked to this inner tranquility, because a calm heart is capable of great. Our focus, clarity, and perseverance. Trust in Allah also requires courage and boldness in action. A believer who trusts Allah is not passive or lazy. They work hard, make wise decisions, and pursue their goals with sincerity, while recognizing that success or failure ultimately rests with Allah. This balance between effort and reliance is essential. It prevents despair, because the believer knows they have done what they could, and it prevents arrogance, because they recognize that all outcomes are determined by Allah. This combination of effort and trust generates a unique spiritual power, because it frees the believer from fear, doubt, and obsession over results. They are able to act decisively, speak truthfully, and pursue righteousness without hesitation or anxiety. Another important aspect of trust is the ability to surrender fully. Trust means letting go of the illusion of control and submitting to the will of Allah. Many people struggle with this because human nature desires to manage every detail of life. We worry, we overthink, we attempt to manipulate outcomes, often forgetting that the ultimate plan belongs to Allah. When a believer develops trust, they learn to release these burdens, to let go of the constant need to control, and to accept Allah's decree with patience and contentment. This surrender is not weakness, it is a source of immense strength. A heart that surrenders to Allah cannot be shaken by circumstances, cannot be undermined by criticism, and cannot be defeated by trials. Spiritual power grows in a heart that is surrendered and reliant. Trust also deepens faith. When a believer experiences life with complete reliance on Allah, their connection to Him strengthens. They begin to recognize His signs, experience His support, and witness the outcomes of His guidance in their daily life. This recognition reinforces faith, creating a cycle of trust and spiritual growth. Each answered dua, each solution that comes at the right moment, each blessing that appears unexpectedly becomes evidence of Allah's care and knowledge, further solidifying trust. The believer then approaches life with confidence, patience, and a sense of security, knowing that Allah is fully capable of managing every aspect of their existence. Spiritual power through trust manifests in resilience during trials. Life is full of tests, and every person faces difficulties, whether in wealth, health, relationships, or personal challenges. Those who trust in Allah are able to endure with patience, to respond with wisdom, and to maintain hope when others falter. Their trust acts as a shield against despair, negativity, and emotional overwhelm. They understand that trials are part of life and that Allah's plan is perfect even when it is hidden. This understanding strengthens their character, refines their soul, and enhances their spiritual influence in ways that cannot be measured by worldly standards. Furthermore, trust in Allah fosters humility and reliance in all affairs. The believer acknowledges their limitations, recognizes the perfection of Allah's knowledge, and understands that no human effort alone is sufficient without divine blessing. This humility keeps the heart pure, prevents arrogance, and ensures that spiritual power is used responsibly, ethically, and in alignment with divine guidance. The heart that trusts Allah is safe from pride and self-centeredness because it knows that true control and authority rest with the Creator. Trust also inspires action guided by certainty. When the believer trusts Allah, they are not paralyzed by fear or doubt. They make decisions with conviction, knowing that Allah's support is with them. This certainty creates a boldness and clarity that radiates through their life. People around them recognize the inner confidence, the calm strength, and the steadfast character, even without fully understanding the source. Spiritual power, therefore, is not always visible or loud. It is often quiet, steady, and firm, rooted in the deep trust of the believer. In every step of life, trust in Allah multiplies spiritual strength. It transforms fear into courage, anxiety into peace, despair into patience, and weakness into resilience. The believer learns to navigate challenges with wisdom, to make decisions with clarity, and to endure trials with unwavering faith. Trust is the secret that connects effort with divine support, discipline with guidance, and patience with reward. Spiritual power flows naturally from a heart that has cultivated this trust, creating a presence that is strong, calm, and impactful in all aspects of life. Remembrance of Allah, or Dhikr, is one of the most powerful keys to spiritual strength, and it is a secret that has been emphasized throughout the Quran and Sunnah. Many people think that spiritual power comes only from outward acts of worship, such as prayer, fasting, or charity, but the reality is that the heart must be alive, conscious, and engaged in the remembrance of Allah for true spiritual power to flourish. The Quran tells us that hearts find peace only in the remembrance of Allah, and this statement alone reveals the immense impact of dhikr on the soul. When a believer constantly remembers Allah, speaks to him in supplication, praises him, and keeps his presence in their thoughts, a remarkable transformation takes place. The heart becomes tranquil, the mind becomes clear, and the spirit becomes resilient against the challenges of life. Dhikr is the bridge between the heart and the Creator, and it is through this connection that spiritual power flows effortlessly. The practice of remembrance does not have to be complicated or performed in grand ceremonies. It can be as simple as quietly saying, Subhanallah, Hamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, or reciting verses from the Quran throughout the day. These small acts, when done consistently, cultivate a consciousness of Allah in the heart that affects every thought, word, and action. It is like oil that lubricates the machinery of the soul, allowing it to function smoothly, free from rust, fatigue, or stagnation. The believer who engages in regular dhikr is constantly reconnecting with the source of all power, guidance, and support, ensuring that their spiritual foundation remains strong, steady, and alive. Remembrance of Allah also strengthens the believer's patience and resilience. Life is full of trials, difficulties, and unexpected hardships, and it is easy for the heart to become anxious, fearful, or overwhelmed. However, when the believer engages in dhikr, they are reminded of Allah's presence, mercy, and control over all affairs. This awareness produces a sense of calm and composure that cannot be achieved through worldly means. Spiritual power grows in a heart that is anchored in the constant remembrance of Allah, because it is through this practice that the believer is shielded from despair, negativity, and the whispers of the soul that lead to weakness or wrongdoing. Dhikr is not merely a ritual, it is a protective mechanism, a source of strength, and a continuous training for the heart to remain connected to its Creator. Another important aspect of dhikr is that it cultivates mindfulness in all aspects of life. When a believer remembers Allah frequently, he begins to view every action, every word, and every thought through the lens of divine awareness. They become more conscious of their behavior, their interactions, and their decisions. This mindfulness naturally strengthens their character, guiding them toward righteousness and away from sin. Spiritual power, therefore, is not just about feeling strong internally. It manifests externally in ethical conduct, compassionate behavior, and wise decision-making. The believer who is mindful of Allah in all things commands a presence that is calm, confident, and influential, not through force, but through the power of a heart connected to its Lord. Remembrance also nourishes the soul with love, hope, and gratitude. The believer who constantly praises and glorifies Allah experiences a deep joy that is independent of circumstances. Gratitude expressed in dhikr elevates the spirit, softens the heart, and creates a sense of fulfillment that no worldly possession can match. Love for Allah grows as the believer engages in remembrance, and this love fuels devotion, perseverance, and a sincere desire to please the Creator in all aspects of life. Spiritual power is thus intertwined with love, and dhikr becomes the medium through which the heart is strengthened, nourished, and prepared to withstand challenges. Consistency in dhikr also builds a strong defense against spiritual weaknesses and the whispers of the soul. Satan seeks to distract, mislead, and weaken the believer, but the person who engages in regular remembrance has a shield in their heart. Each utterance of Allah's name, each verse recited, and each prayer offered with attention becomes a barrier against negative thoughts, destructive behavior, and spiritual vulnerability. This consistent practice not only protects the believer, but also increases their inner strength, confidence, and courage to face trials with patience and perseverance. Spiritual power, therefore, is as much about protection as it is about growth. Remembrance of Allah further strengthens the believer's connection with divine guidance. When the heart is engaged in dhikr, it becomes more sensitive to the signs of Allah, more aware of His commands, and more responsive to His guidance. This heightened awareness allows the believer to navigate life with wisdom, clarity, and purpose. Decisions become aligned with divine principles. Interactions with others become more compassionate and ethical, and challenges are met with resilience and strategic patience. Spiritual power flows naturally when the believer is attentive, conscious, and responsive to Allah's presence in their life. Finally, dhikr instills a sense of inner peace that radiates outward. A heart immersed in the remembrance of Allah is tranquil, confident, and balanced. This peace becomes a source of influence, attracting others through the calm, wisdom, and sincerity that it generates. Spiritual power, therefore, is not always about outward displays or dramatic acts. It is often quiet, steady, and enduring, rooted in a heart that continuously remembers its Creator. The believer learns that true power is not about control over others or dominance in worldly affairs, but about strength of the soul, clarity of purpose, and a connection with Allah that guides every thought, action, and decision. Spiritual power is expressed most profoundly through humility, submission, and acting upon knowledge, and this combination completes the foundation of a heart connected to Allah. Many people misunderstand spiritual strength as being loud, forceful, or dominant, yet true power lies in gentleness, sincerity, and the ability to live according to divine guidance. Humility is the first pillar of this power. A humble heart recognizes its own limitations, understands its dependence on Allah, and refrains from arrogance. It does not boast about its deeds, nor does it elevate itself above others. The Quran reminds us that Allah does not love those who are arrogant, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught that the best among people are those who are humble. When humility becomes a way of life, spiritual power manifests naturally because it draws divine favor, protects the heart from corruption, and allows the believer to be guided with clarity and wisdom. Humility does not mean weakness. It means strength tempered with awareness of one's place in the creation and submission to the Creator. Submission is the second pillar of spiritual power. A believer submits to the will of Allah by following His guidance, obeying His commands, and accepting His decrees. Submission is an act of strength because it requires the believer to set aside personal desires, ego, and worldly distractions in favor of divine instruction. Life is filled with challenges that test patience, character, and faith, and submission allows the believer to navigate these trials with peace and resilience. The person who submits their heart, mind, and soul to Allah's will is not shaken by external pressures or internal doubts. They accept both blessings and trials as part of a larger divine plan, and this acceptance strengthens their spiritual foundation. Submission cultivates a heart that is responsive, flexible, and deeply rooted in faith, allowing spiritual power to grow steadily and sustainably. Knowledge is the third essential component of spiritual power. A heart that acts without knowledge may stumble, and a mind that is informed but detached from action is incomplete. True spiritual power emerges when knowledge and action align. Learning the Quran, understanding the teachings of the Prophet, and seeking wisdom from authentic sources equips the believer with the insight to act correctly in every situation. Acting upon knowledge demonstrates discipline, integrity, and awareness, and it ensures that spiritual power is grounded in truth rather than mere emotion or superficial piety. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, emphasized that seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim because knowledge lights the path and provides the tools necessary for righteous action. A heart that applies knowledge consistently in thought, speech, and behavior becomes a vessel of spiritual authority and influence, not through dominance, but through wisdom and authenticity. Humility, submission, and knowledge together create a harmony in the believer's life that radiates strength. Humility ensures that the power is not corrupted by pride. Submission ensures that it is aligned with divine will, and knowledge ensures that it is rooted in truth and applied wisely. Spiritual power is therefore not an external display, but an inner state, a balance between confidence and humility, effort and reliance, wisdom and action. The believer who cultivates these qualities experiences a transformation in character, perspective, and influence. Their decisions become measured, their interactions become compassionate, and their presence becomes impactful in a manner that is both visible and invisible. This spiritual power also manifests in patience and endurance. The humble believer who submits to Allah and acts on knowledge is able to withstand trials without complaint, maintain integrity under pressure, and respond to challenges with wisdom rather than impulsiveness. They recognize that every test is an opportunity for growth, and that every hardship is a lesson in reliance and trust. Spiritual power grows in those who can endure without arrogance or despair, who can remain firm without rigidity, and who can act decisively while maintaining humility. The heart becomes strong, the mind becomes focused, and the soul becomes resilient because the believer's energy is directed toward pleasing Allah and fulfilling divine guidance. Moreover, this combination of humility, submission, and action based on knowledge allows the believer to inspire and lead others positively. People are drawn to those who are genuine, wise, and humble. Spiritual power is not about imposing authority, but about influencing hearts through example. The person who embodies these qualities does not need to speak loudly to be heard. Their presence, consistency, and integrity communicate strength and wisdom. Spiritual power becomes a silent force that affects communities, shapes relationships, and inspires righteousness, because it is built on the foundation of alignment with Allah's will and adherence to divine knowledge. Humility also protects against the distractions of worldly temptation. A humble heart is less likely to seek recognition, wealth, or status as the ultimate goal because it understands that true value is measured in obedience to Allah and the purity of intention. Submission ensures that actions are guided by divine principles rather than personal desire, and knowledge provides clarity to discern right from wrong. Together, these qualities create a spiritual armor that shields the believer from sin, weakness, and misguidance. The person who cultivates these traits develops a quiet, steady, and enduring spiritual presence that can navigate life's complexities with wisdom, courage, and resilience. Ultimately, acting upon knowledge ensures that spiritual power is dynamic and effective. Knowledge without action remains potential, but knowledge coupled with action creates results that transform the believer and impact others. Humility and submission guide this action to remain ethical, sincere, and aligned with divine purpose. This alignment produces a life of integrity, influence, and spiritual strength that is enduring and deeply rooted. Spiritual power is therefore not a fleeting sensation or an external achievement. It is a state of being cultivated by consistent alignment of heart, mind, and action, anchored in humility, guided by submission, and driven by knowledge.